if we go all the way up to the top, the CEO and the CXOs and the VP, the senior VPs, etc., the real leadership inside the organization that's accountable for doing the quarterly earnings and for reporting to the shareholder, because this is shareholder value, right? Do you think they understand how their organization makes money?
No, I don't think they do.
So how does their organization make money then?
I think magical things happen. Hey everyone, welcome back to the Summer of Atlassian. Today I have two guests. We got Peter and Dan, and we're going to be talking about all things technical on this one. So make sure you hit that subscribe button, make sure you hit that like button, and let's jump into it. Dan, Peter, welcome.
Hello.
So it's a little different. It's a little different than the normal setup because you guys usually come in the Jira Life, but this is the main channel. This is the big channel. This is the one with all where all the cool things happen. And so, welcome.
Thank you.
I love how you guys are in such synchronization there with your thank yous.
It's like we've been working together for 6 months.
I know, right? But spending that much time together is bound to have some effect on you all.
Indeed.
So I wanted to kick things off. We've been a month and a half out since Team. What's happening new in the developer Forge community that you can share? What's the latest and greatest? Or what are some of those details that we should be aware of?
Well, I think the most recent news is Atlassian changing how its take rate is going to vary over the next 18 months. And that you're going to see if you've still got to connect modules running inside of your Forge app, or if you've not even made the transition to Forge yet, you're going to see the amount of money Atlassian take from your revenue increase. And it's very, very clear a stick is starting to emerge to encourage people off quite aggressively.
That's one way to convince somebody to do something, right? Hit them where it hurts, usually their pockets.
Yeah, I mean, those it's going to help those commercial vendors really narrow their focus down on the profit loss assessment of what is the cost of us not doing this, and prioritization. It really is for those marketplace vendors. Less so for people who built their own apps or people who built free apps, for example. So, like, if you're paid for by vendor, it makes no difference, right? But for quite a large number of the marketplace, for the people that they're targeting, it's not really, given that we already had at the beginning of this year the timeline for the deprecation of Connect. It sort of lines up, right? It's not, but this is one step further, rather than just saying technically we won't be supporting you anymore, but also we're going to be financially disincentivizing you quite heavily from staying on Connect. The interesting feedback I've been hearing pretty much universally when I've been talking with people is that they wouldn't feel so bad if there was feature parity and if moving across was simpler, and if everything they had in Connect was already available in Forge, they just needed to do some mapping. But that's not where we are. The roadmap is still far from complete. They've GA'd Forge SQL, which is probably the second announcement worth shouting about. But it has no transactions. They're looking into it as if transactions in a database is not something that you would find mission critical, right? Otherwise, you're looking at NoSQL systems, and you might as well just use key value stores. And so it's interesting how quickly Atlassian are applying the pressure in the future, because none of this takes effect this year, right? And there's going to be a lot more announcements coming thick and fast. And this Forge roadmap is going to be, which is public, is going to continue to both evolve and gain extra things and probably lose some things. But it's going to be resolved as we go along. But they're placing a very heavy bet saying that come this date in the future, that we believe that everything will be ready. However, everything is still undefined. At least in detail.
Leap before you're ready. Peter, any thoughts on that?
Well, it is basically change management that they're working on. They're painting this wonderful vision of the future. They're trying to convince you to join into that vision of the future. but the road to that vision isn't clear yet. And they're kind of like, we'll get there eventually, trust us. Which, yes, you should trust them that they'll eventually get there, but you shouldn't necessarily trust them on their dates or their timelines, because we've all done software development. We know how those things go.
But it's an interesting tactic that they're taking, right? And it's a conversation that I often look back at Atlassian's values, cross-reference with their actions today, right? And this is one of the things that I've been very fearful, right? As they bring on sales experts, as they bring on enterprise experts to help with the company, I feel like this would be anti-Atlassian. Like, why would you hurt your customer in that case, right?
Well, I'm not sure that's true. In what way do you think they're hurting the customer?
by doing a forcing function, not their customer, like the end user, but their vendors, right? By doing a forcing function of you have to switch or we're going to hurt you financially.
Yeah, but Connect and DC and other things that Atlassian trying to leave behind are hurting the customer. It's a distraction that means that 18,000 Atlassians, as will be eventually, they are split in focus. They are definitely diluted in message, and they haven't got this clarity of vision as these pull in different directions. There is massive handbrakes that we've seen for the past 5 years that have been shouted about, not just from the enterprise customers, but from partners, as to you can't do data residency, you can't do isolation, and you can't do these things, and the compliance flags aren't ticked, etc., etc., etc. And it's interesting watching those get addressed and people stick their heels in and go, well, I thought you'd do that without changing. It's like, well, of course not. You're now doing these things. It's not be careful what you wish for. If anything, I think it's leaning heavily into Atlassian's vision. And it's not the values that I keep coming back to. They are ever present across Atlassian. And Atlassian has never escaped being an enterprise organization. But I saw at 500 what I saw in other organizations at 200, 100. I see them at 5,000 being what I see other organizations having to do at 500. They have kept the heart and balance. They have kept the don't fuck the customer. Yeah, I
Right.
assume we can. I just did.
It's hard they say within the first 7 minutes we're off by 3 seconds, but I think we'll be fine.
The challenge always is going to be, what does it mean to be the change you seek? Because being the change you seek could mean that you don't wait for someone else to solve a problem. And actually, Atlassian has done really quite well to update the text behind those values. And what that actually really means, what it means to be the change you seek doesn't mean you can act with impunity and do whatever the hell you like, right? It's not go off and do your own thing. It's not anarchy. And not screwing the customer actually means more having the customer's intent, the customer's experience, the customer's value at the heart of what you're doing. And if that's not what Atlassian's been driving for, then you've probably not been listening.
No, I don't know that I explained it incorrectly, because I agree wholeheartedly with everything you said, but I just meant like the tactic, right? The strategy to increase based on which system or methodology you're using, I feels aggressive. Right. Well, especially when you look at like
it is faster than you used to play. Like they're playing quick, like it's going quicker, it's faster than people are expecting from Atlassian. But then again, they've been saying they want to go to cloud only for almost a decade. They've been talking about Forge for almost a decade. Like and then about Connect and cloud focused for development and cloud first development. They've been talking about making changes, about going off the enterprise for the last couple of years. They've been talking about this for a long time. They've been slowly and surely painting this vision, and now they're accelerating. And so I feel like they're trying to play as a team. They're trying to build with heart and balance. But like Dan said, those definitions have changed, and they've kept them up to date on the website. And people sometimes apply their own ideas to those values and kind of stay fixed on those. I feel like Atlassian has done the best it can in this quickly changing environment to keep partners, to stay honest with partners and to keep them informed. but it's going really, really fast. And what I've noticed from my conversation with partners and developers is that it's really hard to keep up. Which, if you look at from the other side, can also be a tactic from Atlassian. It could be a tactic to keep you always running behind the latest and the latest updates, keep you off your off center, to keep you not having enough time left to think things through and just keep going. It is what's happened in other ecosystems too, where the main company changes things so quickly that nobody can really follow along, and nobody has time to think things through, and they just do what's being asked of them because they want to make sure they stay in business.
Yeah,
and stay alive. Yes,
that makes sense. So, from one of the big changes that I've also been hearing is that Atlassian is changing to like a per individual pricing model as opposed to the you have to buy for all 2,000 users. Do you guys have any new insights or any new information on when that's happening, how that's impacting people? How do you see that playing out though, if and when they make that change?
So that was announced for apps this time last year in an RFP.
Yeah, and I thought they did something at Atlas Camp as well, right?
At Atlas Camp, they announced the timeline, and actually it was slightly ahead. It was a week in advance that they shared the timeline. It's opt-in for everything other than enterprise multi-site, and you have to give multi-site pricing. That's coming very, very soon. But by September, for those that choose to opt in, and interestingly, you talk to Atlassians, they say it's opt-in for now. And I wouldn't be surprised if there isn't much movement in the current ecosystem, as quite a lot of apps, it's not in their interest to change their pricing model, and it's complex, and there's a whole bunch of things and risks that comes with that. Add that on top of having to move to Forge and having to migrate more and more people off data center into cloud, because who knows when that's finishing. That's a lot of movement and a lot of risk for no new features. Nothing new coming out of that.
It's a lot of movement to stay status quo at the end, right?
Yeah, and a lot of effort, right? And that takes away. Those partners would be looking at the investment in new features and taking new customers from that versus the risk of not playing along right now. And hence why you see the revenue announcement being made for Connect, because people hadn't had that as a burning platform. It was purely from a functional risk, and your thing's not going to stop working when Connect end of lives. And all it is the end of life support, right? It's just from this point on, we won't commit to keeping it working, and it's not going to turn off. And so the question is whether that's 18 months away, 36 months away, or if you have some simple integrations or some niche integrations that are out of the way of things that get changed on a regular basis or at all, then you can be running on those things for years. But Atlassian don't want you to. Atlassian want you to move, and frankly, it's easier for customers if we do. The problem is making that investment. And there are some genuine challenges here, but like most debates, we get swept up in the things that feel emotive and the things that are big and flashy, not the real issues underneath it, which are, how do you keep the lights on while doing a migration? How do you get to your customers when they're often through even a solution partner, and you can't find out how many people even use your app, regardless of how many license it, how many use it, and what they're using it for? And getting those answers are things that actually help you work out what my app should be and how I target it and how I define the value in order to turn that into $1 per user. That information is not available easily. In fact, in some cases, it's just not accessible through any of the existing channels. And so resolving those problems are really where we're going to need to focus as a community in order to be able to make that transition happen, because what we have at the moment is excuses. It's the same as what we saw with the DC to cloud migration. People were like, oh, you can't store 5 terabytes in the cloud, so I'll stop thinking. That wasn't really what was stopping them. And we're getting now to the crux of it, which is some people don't want the cloud product. It's so different to what it used to be, and they're so used to it. It's like as different as migrating to any of the other cloud solutions and the work management tools that we have. And the information knowledge management tools.
But not only that, but migration itself becomes a project, right? Because it's not like, oh, I'm just going to do this over the weekend. Like, this is a multi-month effort in some cases, especially with the laggards that we have today. everybody that's not already in cloud, they have a long like.
That's how it's always been for enterprises. Like I used to do consultancy with big enterprises and with government. Any migration project is years in planning, in coordination, in getting everything ready, in testing again, in working together with multiple suppliers, and then eventually it is indeed a weekend often where you do all the things you've tested,
Eventually,
tested
yeah.
again, and you
But
make sure you can roll back if anything comes up.
very similar to what the marketplace vendors are experiencing, a company, a customer of Atlassian has to pick: do I invest money into a cost, which is migrate my infrastructure, or do I deliver and build features that my customers are going to pay me for, right? And like, and if you're going to have a finite resource,
The thing with the new licensing models like the per user pricing or the usage based pricing or the app editions is that I'm going to like, to me, the first movers are going to be brand new apps who've been explicitly built for single users. So then it's easier to quantify their value, it's easier to market them. And they're probably going to be smaller apps to begin with, some of them from existing vendors, some of them from new partners to test the waters. And then eventually, some of the older apps might migrate to this new pricing model. Some of them might stay on the old tiered licensing model.
and just eat the cost. Because like you got to think about like your tempos and your app fires, right? That have a huge marketplace presence. Like that, this is not going to be a lift and shift for them in a weekend.
No, but the thing with like a Tempo, for example, is their timesheet apps is probably being used by almost all users of that Jira instance. Let's make an assumption here. While if you're building, let's say, an HR or a finance app that is only for the HR department, the finance department, then it might make more sense to make it per user so that they can buy the 10,000 users Tempo license for all of their timesheets, but only the 100 users for their HR department.
But
And so it
doesn't it,
makes it easier
or
to sell and upsell.
but the math doesn't make sense there for the marketplace vendor, right? Because today, or before the change, let's just say a year ago, if you had an HR only app and you wanted to install it and you had 10,000 users, you're buying it for 10,000 users. But in the future, you can just buy it for 100, but you just lost like 99% of your revenue.
No,
How
but
are they?
you wouldn't sell at the same price. You would talk about value-based pricing. You would say, hey, your HR team is going to their work is going to be so much easier because they're plugged into the system of work and all those things. That's going to save you this much money. So that's the actual value our app brings to one HR employee. So, and we're going to only charge you like, let's say, 20% of that value you're going to get back. So it's a completely different way of thinking about the value your app brings to those individual users, and you price it like that. You don't price it in bulk anymore. So you're not going to also like price it at the same per user.
Yeah, like
Uh,
$1 per user or whatever. It's going to be like $9.99 or something now.
yeah, which is still extremely cheap for most business apps.
It's definitely going to be a different thing because I've been working with teams and I'm very, very intimate with Atlassian's billing. Like I understand. It took me years to understand Atlassian's billing, but I feel like I walked away with a good understanding. But now with all these changes, and like the teamwork collection, that changes complexities too, with how collections are built versus a la carte items, right? And so Atlassian's doing a lot of changes all at the same time.
I see an opportunity for solution partners there to simplify Atlassian's billing engine.
From a how to like training and teaching evangelism, or from a build something better perspective.
From a we'll for one single price, we'll give you all the things, and we'll figure out how to.
We'll do the math.
We'll do the math. Yes, for an
Yeah,
extra.
I can see that because I've worked with just so many folks that like IT leaders. At the end of the day, they just see a dollar sign, right? They need to know how much is this thing going to cost me, right? And are we getting any deals or discounts? But the nuances, right? The how many apps are installed in this site? How many sites are installed over here? Why do I have two different line items? Why am I Why am I being charged 5 times for X-ray when I have 5 sites with X-ray installed? Right? Like those nuances, like your directors, VP, CTOs, like they don't care. Like they just need to know why did my bill go up by 20% year over year?
Yeah, and what's the value? What's the value I get out of this dollar value?
But I haven't really seen the conversation on value though. But the conversation is usually golden handcuffs. Have you heard of that term?
Mhm.
You're already in Jira, so you're stuck. So Atlassian can raise the price. What are you going to do? Migrate off to a Monday.com? Come on.
Yes, but still, it is at a certain point in time that the pain is so much, it's too much, and they will migrate if
So do
we
you
don't.
think, so this has been an ongoing debate, internalization problem that I've had, which is at what is the tipping point for Atlassians? At what point does Atlassian become too expensive?
It's not
Because
just about expense. It really is not about expense. There is the cost of migration, and but you have the third aspect you've not considered, that is stated, is by building your own system. And at some point, if you're paying millions of dollars a year in licensing it, do you really need the complexity of the system? Or actually, if I look at this over a 3-year horizon, could I build my own system that does what I need it to do? Frankly, building a card wall and a work management system that fits, yes, but yeah, the problem's wider. It's not just the financial aspect of it. Is what are you doing with this tooling? What processes is it supporting, and where is the knowledge being kept, and how
decision
is the
makers don't usually worry about that because they just know that their teams need it. They just know it's a cost entry on their budget. Your final of signature on buying off a Jira or an Atlassian tool, yeah, they're looking for value, but they also know that it's been in the company for 10, 15, 20 years. Value,
Yeah.
I don't see them like debating, oh, is this, I see them nitpicking the plugins, the apps, right? I see them going, okay, do we actually use this plugin? Do we not? But not once has one company ever said, oh yeah, we don't really use Jira.
So why don't you see Oracle getting dropped more often then?
Because there's a
Oracle,
so again, Oracle got so expensive and newcomers came in at a cheaper rate, I would assume.
yeah, but you don't see people flocking away from Oracle, especially not in these enterprises that you're positing about. Because it's not just about the money, it's about the impact of change. It's about the cost of, as a whole, it's the cost of opportunity, but it's also the cost of the contract value, but also it's the cost of the impact to individuals of what it does today versus tomorrow, and the feature ticking. To some extent, there's compliance running down. It's like, okay, well, sure, run off to monday.com. Does it tick all the same boxes in terms of flexibility as Jira does? I don't think
Probably
so.
not.
It's
Yeah.
far more opinionated, but that you might not care about those things. But then we're into the bracket of not just evaluating this as a simple cost model, and this is where you have RFPs, and RFPs are very much not aimed around the money. I mean, the money puts you in a bracket, right? But it's aimed around what you get for it, the value, and it's the total contracted value really that's being assessed. The amount of times that when I was with Adaptivist, that we would sit in front of a customer, a large customer, a decade ago, and I remember having the conversation with one in particular. We said, "This is great, but you're paying us £1 million to help you hate Jira. You realise that's the way you've set this RFP up, and what everyone's delivering to what you've asked us to deliver to you is not going to solve the problem that you've got. Frankly, the problem isn't Rally. That's not where your problem lies." And yes, they moved across to Jira, and yes, they hated it, and yes, they came back to us and went, "Yeah, we shot ourselves in the foot. What did you mean? What do we do about this?" And it really is about what does it give you and what does it enable. I mean, that level of focus has not, we've gotten away for the past 10 years inside of this ecosystem with not having to care about that. We throw out an app and people will buy it. Who cares what they're doing? They're buying it, right? It's got some fun. Well, who cares why someone's doing test management, or who cares why they're gluing it into Jenkins, or who cares why they're using task lists, or who cares why they're trying to embed something from SharePoint. We're just enabling this functionality. People are using it, therefore that's good, right?
Yeah, that's usually the bar.
I mean, but that doesn't help you understand, well, what does that unlock? Whose work does that help? How does that help the organization move forward?
But that's
very clear.
and that's kind of the argument that I was having, right? Like, most of the leaders that I've worked with, they don't get into the nuances of the value discussion. They just see the line item at the end of how much it's going to impact their budget. And it's really, really hard to put a monetary value on value, right? Like how do you tell somebody that we're saving you 10,000 hours of something or 20,000 hours of this? Like what does time saved equal as a dollar figure? And I
Well,
see this
how much
with
do
like
you pay your,
Rovo.
how much do you pay your average software developer per hour?
I'll just say $200 an hour.
Well, there's your dollar value per hour. So 10,000
Right.
hours.
But how do you know, like, how do you know that your developer is gonna save, right? Like, there's no guarantee. Like Rovo's a great example, right? I feel like the selling point on Rovo's biggest selling feature is that it's ultimate productivity saver, right? Like, it will do stuff for you. Great. How do I sell it to a company that says that we're gonna save 1,000,000 hours a year? Well, how did you come up with that number? What, like, how does that math work?
It's often based on, well, research for one. It's on often the companies who sell these kind of tools, they go and talk to their early adopters and say, how much time did it save you? And then they'll put some marketing twist on it, and they'll say, on average, our app saves our customers 25%
Time, yeah.
time. And it's never a guarantee. You'll never find anybody guaranteeing that you'll save that much time. But they will tell you that you will save time. And if you start putting the dollar values at that point in time, you're probably misunderstanding how those businesses work in a bigger, like, for example, you're saying about a line item. Yes, they worry about line items on their budget, but they also understand, especially at the highest level, that if you change some software at the bottom because another another app is cheaper or whatever, it's going to impact every single person in the company, every single team that uses this. It's going to add in educational costs. It's going to add in change management costs. It's going to slow down every single development you're doing right now, which has an additional cost. So it's not just that line item, it's all of the other ones too that's going to be impacted by that decision. And that is often why once companies pick a tech stack, they stay with it.
Yeah.
Because it's so well embedded in their processes, in the minds of their people, in their hiring practices. Sometimes companies are like, we use all of these wonderful tools, come work for us. So it's embedded everywhere, and making that change is very, very, very expensive in people's, in time, in money, in all kinds of different resources that aren't necessarily dollars, but do have an impact on how you run your business.
Yeah.
I mean, this is what
That's
you're
Literally,
seeing with Atlassian system of work. This is what they're really trying to focus. I mean, all of it is about work. Atlassian, Jira is about work management. Confluence is about the knowledge of work. You've got the team work graph. You've got issues that are now just called work, and it's not just about breaking those nows down and making it more accessible. It's about the focus shifting to work. And it's not about having a ticketing system. It's not about having a work tracking system. It's about understanding how work is done in your organization and then modeling that in your tooling. And then you have different views on that. Jira, Confluence, Loom, all of these have got different perspectives on what is the same piece of work. And where that knowledge is stored
yeah.
doesn't really matter. It's where it's surfaced and read. And the perspective you have on that. So if you're dropping a Loom meeting, for example, into Jira, you're seeing the tasks that really need to be built up and taken from it. And if you drop it into Confluence, you're seeing the summary of what happened and the action items that got taken and linking out to the other systems. And it is about shifting that focus away from we're just a database with a UI, which is what Jira was at its core, to actually we're a work management system. And the more Atlassian talks, especially to the solution partners, the more obvious it's becoming that what Atlassian need is for its partner system to have a acute understanding of how work gets done in the various demographics of its customer base and what the needs are of those, And then the marketplace will start filling those in. And that's the white space of the future, not the functional white space of the past. And that change is really quite fundamental. And you've seen that Atlassian try to encourage that over the past 5 or 6 years, especially when COVID forced everyone remote and Team Anywhere appeared as a brand. Atlassian has been really focused on not just where you work, but how you work. And they've been really focused inside to gain those learnings. And you've seen Don Price, Matt Kruth, and Sven push this out quite aggressively. And I say aggressively, I mean, everywhere you go, you hear them saying the same thing. Of course, you hear the labels of AI Rovo, and you hear all the buzzwords that go with it. But the story that connects them all is, how are you doing your work? If you listen to Dom, it's what makes your work. How do you work? His own personal brand, right, is about where your work happiness is and the scorecard for you. And the scorecard for work is what? It certainly isn't your KPIs against your OKRs or any TLAs that you want. Really, it's about how do you function as a team. And I guarantee you it's not Scrum.
Well, I guarantee you, I clearly need to work at better companies, because with everything you just said, I wholeheartedly agree. But here's the reality that I would have lived 6 months ago. System of work, great idea. I love it. What I see when I come in for my renewal at the end of the year, as we're gonna push system of work forward, I had a $1 million Jira entry for 4,000 users, whatever it was. I now have a $5 million entry for 10,000 users because I now have to bring everybody into an Atlassian tool. And that's all my CIOs care about. Like, they're like, why, how the heck did we go from 1 million to $5 million on a tool? And again, maybe I've worked at all the wrong companies, but that's been my struggle that I've seen over my my decade here working, where those final decision makers, they again, you don't see the value. You just see that line item getting hit against your budget.
I mean, that's not how it works, though, right?
No, I'm describing a true story from my career. So.
Yeah, but that's not how it works. What you're saying is not the zero-sum game of the only options available on the table.
Why not?
You can fragment your knowledge base. Not every team has to work on the same tool across your organization. Of course, Atlassian wants to consolidate, but only the point at which value is seen. There is no value in Atlassian gathering 100,000 people on a platform and only having 20,000 people using it. That makes no sense, because your procurement department are going to carve that up within 2 years, 3 years, and it's primed to be taken by someone else. Now, having a platform where 2,000, 20,000 people use it, and then we can expand to another 5,000, another 10,000, another 5,000, and actually going off and expanding inside an organization is Atlassian's strategy, and has been for as long as I've known them. They started at the grassroots. They just start higher up the tree now. And they don't have to take every team in an organization, but their mission is to. And let's remind ourselves of their mission, which is to unleash the potential in every team. Yes, they want to do that, but that doesn't mean that they think that they will start there inside of an organization, especially not one where they've got such a solidified perception and already existence inside of an organization.
So you're telling me system of work is going to be a slow roll? You acquire department by department.
If you believe that the system of work means that the entirety of an organization is going to be taken over on day one, I'm going to say that that's going to happen in a very small number of cases. There isn't a single case study of this, and I include the Formula One team where they have 10 Atlassians sat inside of them.
But that's the ultimate goal, though, for an entire organization to be within the stack.
Yes, but that doesn't happen. I think that any M365 running organization, the goal of Copilot is for it to be used by everyone in the organization multiple times every day. Show me a single organization, including Microsoft, doing that. Of course, it's not there, and that's a thing that comes with time. Just because that's an objective and that's a big hairy audacious goal as to what we want to try and achieve. I mean, that's a laudable goal, right? Same as unleash the potential in every team. How you get there is always going to be progressive. Change is always incremental, and change upon change is incremental. And so it really is interesting to see the people that jump straight ahead and think, well, now Atlassian has announced a solution. They have not. This is not a solution. You can't buy the system of work and then be the system of work once you pay the invoice. That's not how it goes.
But I still have like the point though still is your Atlassian bill will increase as you spread adoption across your company.
Yes, the same that goes with as you do it with Slack, as you do it with any other form of tooling. If you, the AI tooling that sits inside of the Creative Suite from Adobe, you don't give it to everyone on day one. You give it to a small suite of designers who are on the cutting edge of wanting to use generative AI tooling, see how it goes. And yeah, before you know it, it's working really well, demonstrating value. And sure, yeah, you've got 300 people using it by the end of the year, but that's it succeeding. That's a success story. If you're saying that rolling this stuff out just costs me more money and doesn't give me more value, I can go and help those organizations. There's a lot of help I can give.
That's kind of what I was going to ask. I think we need to do like a whole master's class on determining what value is, because throughout my career, like it's just such a black box value to me, right? Like, what is value? How do you even think about it? Because a lot of the teams that I worked with in the past, you said something very interesting, right? Like, how do you do work? Don Prince's model, right? But my reality that I've seen is most people have no idea how things happen. Like, you have an idea and something happens. And what happens in between is always such a gray area for every company I've ever worked at.
It's the idea ? Profits.
Right. So that question mark, though, is the value that you keep saying is going to come. But I don't think any leader at a company, at least all the ones I worked at, have any freaking clue what their people are doing at any given time, let alone measure their value.
Do you think they know what their people are doing?
No. I think at least in the antiquated old companies that I worked with, those leaders are, I don't even know what they're doing, but they're not doing anything productive that I've ever seen.
So if we go all the way up to the top,
they're just in meetings talking about meetings. That's all I know.
If we go all the way up to the top, the CEO and the CXOs and the VP, the senior VPs, etc., the real leadership inside the organization that's accountable for doing the quarterly earnings and for reporting to the shareholder, because this is shareholder value, right? Do you think they understand how their organization makes money?
No, I don't think they do.
So how does their organization make money then?
I think magical things happen. And you have just enough. You have just enough players that keep it all together, and everybody else is just doing busy work. So I'm not even kidding with you, Dan. I'm not.
I know. I'm also not trying not to steal your learning, and there might be an epiphany at some point.
No, I mean, educate people. That's the whole point of why I talk to very smart people like yourself.
Very smart people like me. Yeah.
I just say that, I mean, again, Dan, and I am speaking from my reality, of my observations of the dozens or so companies that I worked on in my career. That's the perception that I've had.
Indeed. So typically in an organization, somewhere between 5 and 30% of people are busy workers, waste. Whatever term you would like to. There's a lot of derogatory
terms. The busy bees is what we call them here.
But they're the people who seem to get in the way, and even of those, they're the people who are least effective, but they're not zero effective. I have found people that create more work than they actually do. They're very rare. I've also found internal terrorists. The number is about 1 in 1,000 people have malicious intent. And so those people have actively malicious intent. And in some cases, there's corporate espionage going on, and you actually work for someone else, but you're getting a job over it. That stuff actually happens at scale.
Right.
But it's a tiny number. And we don't really worry about those in the context of what we're talking about in terms of what my organization does.
Yeah.
Your security team probably does, and your information security team certainly.
And HR probably does care as well.
Yeah, and that's why you have data exploitation rules, etc. But that's not my point. My point is that leaves a lot of people. They're still like 70 to 95%. And of those people, over 60% and I'm sort of taking numbers from Accenture and HBR and Forrester, etc., that do this sort of research and reporting, it's upwards of 60% that a 360 review describes those people in their roles as competent. So most of the people in your organization will be competent at doing what they're doing. Now, if we take a step back and we just talk about, hey, how does Amazon work? And I'm not talking about Bezos, but I mean the people at the high level, understanding what do? We get an inventory, right? And we have a marketplace, and we need to get customers and suppliers and glue them together with a delivery network. That's your inventory supply chain management is a big issue with you, as well as the global supply chain. And so that's why things like tariffs and things like China having empty boats, those sorts of things do matter, because you understand the macro level, how these building blocks work. And I do actually think these organizations understand roughly how they make money. Now, and we see this in politics, right? Where you ask, how much is a gallon of gas in Minnesota? It's something you'd ask a politician and expect it to come off. They're at such a high level. What they're really asking is, are you grounded enough to know roughly what's going on for people at the bottom? And typically in an organization of that scale, probably not that much. They probably couldn't say how many features or how many story points did Team X get this week. Of course, they wouldn't know that. But they do know that velocity matters, and they do know that technical debt building is a problem. They need to invest in these sorts of people in these areas. And they also know what the impact of offshoring versus onshoring is, versus having their data externalized versus internalized. And they have this understanding as a frame of reference as to how does our organization work. Interestingly, that is very rarely modeled in their tooling. It very rarely is captured by the tooling. And it's a thing that Atlassian has opened the door to helping us understand, and not just articulate through documentation, which lots of us have our team docs, right? As to where do you put our support desk, and how do you get things escalated, and how do we prioritize our backlog, and who's our dependencies, and who do we impact by changing APIs, and who owns what? All of that stuff tends to get documented in these large organizations, but that documentation almost always is out of date. The amount of times I've been in larger organizations, and where even mid-project, if it's 18 months long, you'll be dealing with 3 or 4 different program managers on the same project. And so who you talk to, what they do, how they work, and when they connect, that stuff is living. And documentation tends to be quite static. And if we're able to capture this sort of information about how our networks work, how information flows through our organization, literally Conway's law, it allows us to measure the delta between what we say is what happens and what actually does. And I can see the future of Rovo picking up agents that update those things and say, hey, you know what? This isn't how we work anymore. And perhaps I can show you a diagram of how it does. Here's a Confluence diagram. There's a wonderful opportunity when you grasp the world of work, not just ticket management, to actually help an organization understand how it thinks, how it gets stuff done, and reflect that back. But that will take time. It takes, because you can do it at the team level, right? You bring that, and most obviously it will be in technical teams to begin with, because people in the DevOps space use Jira a lot. Sometimes because they're forced to, sometimes because they like to and chose to. But as Atlassian starts to become the tool, again, that people want to use. And there is an element of winning people back after what has been a bit of stagnation. And I was with CTOs yesterday in the Institute of Directors in London, chatting in the wine bar about when I said, hey, how many of you use Jira? And after the laughter subsided, which is the problem, that people don't realize that they don't hate Jira, they hate how Jira is configured. And it's really hard for you to work out, what do I need to configure Jira to do? And every single one of them had the wrong question, which was, which tool should I give to my team? And the problem was, how does my team work, and what do we need to do to make them faster? Now we're cooking on gas, because it doesn't matter what the answer to that is, because the answer to that is Jira can do it.
Right.
I also
go ahead, Peter.
I want to add something to what Dan said. Like Dan was talking about, like the figuring out how people work and getting the tools to support it. I also feel like there's a massive opportunity for the psychology of teams to come in here and figure out, okay, how do teams work together? How do different kind of people work together? Which types of people do actually work together well? Which type of teams work well? And also explaining what people at different levels in an org should be doing and how they help and just like help the company. And one of the, like, I have a lot of conversations with people at different levels in companies, and like the ICs, they wonder, okay, what does a CEO actually do? What does a CTO actually do? I don't see him coding, or I don't see her doing product management. And that's because they have a totally different role. They have a totally different responsibility within the company. It is vision, it is leading, it is shareholder management, it is all of those kind of things that is equally important for the company as the actual features you're building. Because they're enabling you to be able to do this, and you're enabling them to go and talk to those stakeholders. Having like training solution partners, training consultants in, being able to explain this, combining it with showcasing how their teams are currently working, how this might improve the way they're working, how the Atlassian platform can support this system of work and help them figure out and improve their system of work. Combine that with that psychology, that mental level and understanding of how does this all work together and how can I visualize this using some of these apps, is going to also, in my mind, revolutionize the way we work together, especially if you throw in AI and Rovo.
I just still think, I mean, I'll give you a great example, and I know we only have a few minutes left. I worked in a company, 100,000 person company, right? Really, really big company. And we were on a program. So we were working on a particular product. And that subset of people was closer to like 300 to 400 people. Okay. That program was 3 years behind schedule. And what happened was they brought in a director. She came in, cleaned up, like basically brought in, she had like a team of 12 people that were highly skilled in each of the engineering disciplines that it takes to build the program. And so she basically told 300 people, y'all keep doing whatever it is you're doing. My 12 people are going to sit with y'all for a couple of weeks, understand everything it is you're doing. And then these 12 people are going to go finish this program. No Jira, no tools, just Excel and spreadsheets on current problems. And they were able to do it in 9 months.
Mm-hmm.
And so at the end of the day, like this, again, these are my experiences that I get where it's like, I don't see the correlation of like the people that actually deliver the value, the tools and the decision makers. Like to me, it's so murky, so disconnected. I don't see how Atlassian solves the problem. I don't see how any consultant, any solution partner helps, because I think people just are numb.
So, having seen many Scrum Masters at that level, and it works in the small, right? When you've got two pizza teams and you can get across everything that they're doing, you can manage quite aggressively what we're doing over the next couple of weeks, sometimes a little bit longer and less. You can break down things and work really in an agile fashion that fits quite close to the Agile Manifesto. I've seen those work beautifully. I've run a couple of startups that look just like that. And no, you don't need Jira. In fact, you could run it off Trello. Hell, you could run it off a whiteboard, and I've seen plenty actually use a cardboard.
Yeah.
And the problem is you go and do an offsite with that team, the cardboard's in the office. Or you're at home, the cardboard's in the office. Or you're on the train, cardboard's in the damn office. And so digitizing it becomes obvious. And then, so which tool do we pick to do that? It's an Excel spreadsheet. Okay, do you have the latest version?
But the tool is less is important than the culture and the people and the process of the people.
It's almost like you're preaching what I said. Wonderful. Yeah. It's nice to hear that coming back.
But that's why I'm like, I agree with everything you said. It's just like, in my mind, I don't see how you step into that next step, because like here in the US, like we're so big on outsourcing our work. I've seen this so many times in the companies that I worked with outsourced. The outsourced folks just don't simply care. It's not, they live in an area of population that the moment they want another job, they're gone. Like they'll get another job in 30 seconds. So their commitment to care for the company to do well is so low that they just don't care.
Yeah,
you can't run a business on people not caring.
I spent 9 months inside of an outsourcer that had over 250,000 people, and felt very much what it was like to be a number, and in fact did a lot of work upskilling people, only to find they literally quit on the Monday because they're now worth more.
Right.
And they can go to the highest bidder. And so, I understand where you're coming from. the challenge is not the small, because those project teams still get done. You still get what you asked for. It might not be what you wanted. And you have to be very careful about your contracting. And in some cases, literally the contract as to, are you working on time and materials? Or are you working on a fixed outcome? Whatever it is. As you start to grow and scale your organization, it's not one team you're talking about. It's multiple teams. And then it's teams of teams. And there's teams of teams of teams and all of the overhead that comes with it. Because it's not just a delivery team anymore. It's HR has to get involved. So you have a team in the first place. And then you need to have legal because they need contracts. And then you need sales because whatever you produce, you probably need to sell in order to pay the people. But now you're paying the people. You need finance. And all of a sudden, this business isn't a two-pizza team. And all of a sudden, the work that matters isn't just the execution and delivery. It's the whole end-to-end cycle of have we built the right thing? And we're now into customer interviews, and we're now into a cross-functional team. And then we're into, right, we've delivered it. We now need an operational team. And that's full DevOps, right? And all of a sudden, it's no longer as simple enough to, I've never seen an entire company run on a single spreadsheet. I mean, my business with Peter definitely doesn't run on a single spreadsheet. I mean, we've tried.
It can.
But the point behind that is that the tooling getting driven from the need of what the business and its work to be done is the important bit. Otherwise, what you're doing is being led by the tooling. So you pick up Asana. You pick up templates and you start following them because you don't understand how to build that template in the first place. I mean, we're now into learning and maturity models like Dreyfus, which talks about novice to expert and could you have built the system? And are we dealing with junior developers that can probably build you that login system, but it's going to be full of holes and will take 3 times as long to build? Whereas if you pick up a senior or staff, they're obviously going to get to the solution much faster because they're experienced. I'm sure Peter will, I've built businesses before, so I get to bring into our company a lot of previous experience of just going, hang on a second, I know how to do this multi-currency stuff. Do you want me to just set it all up and let me get it running on Rails and then I'll show you how it works? And then you can understand how it's configured. So rather than you pushing the button, it's more important to you understanding how the stuff flows through it. This is no different to work. And this is where you start to see tooling like Jira, Confluence, hell, Notion and others. Gluing that together with the teamwork graph is where Atlassian is driving so hard because they see that knowledge isn't tool-based. Knowledge is process managed and individually based. And so how do we get that and be with the data where the individual wants to be? I'm pretty certain that we'll see some interesting integrations pulling in data from Excel spreadsheets stored in SharePoint. And we'll see that reference inside of Jira issues and inside of Confluence pages, and we'll see that data being live updated and pulled out by agents inside of Rovo. And you'll find that humans will become less knowledge workers and more knowledge managers. And the only way you can manage knowledge is if you understand how the knowledge works and how knowledge flows. And that's the challenge for Atlassian and all of its partners, is to get that into their heads to think this is what I need to be doing. Because the mission before was to get people tracking their work in Jira. That's where Jira was back in 2005 to 2010. Just get people using this tool versus other tools. I mean, Atlassian have dropped the strap line, but it used to be build tools that people lust after. And it's gone for a long time, partly because of the word lust, I guess. But more than that, it is Atlassian have moved to help organizations understand how they work. And if you want to see how far back Atlassian has been hinting at this, it's the team playbook. And when the team playbook came out, people thought it was the Spotify model, right? This is how Atlassian works and how we can be like Atlassian. No, that's not it at all. Actually, the power of the team playbook is you building your own playbook. But how do you go about doing that? I think there's going to be some interesting services coming up around that, because that's what unlocks organizations asking those harder questions of not what work do we do, but how do we do work? And then more importantly, in a lot of organizations, especially the large ones you're talking about, what work do I create for others? And how do I deal with that? Because if all you're doing is generating work for other people, I guarantee you, I can tell you what they think of you.
Dude, I'm telling you. So again, real stories here. I remember getting a task. I'm an individual contributor, right? And I remember getting a task because my manager said you have to do this task, right? And I remember so vaguely, so clearly. I log in the morning. I'm hit 5 a.m. in the morning. I'm hit with like 7 or 8 IMs, right? And I'm like, what the heck is going on at 5 a.m.? What building is on fire, right? So I'm looking through the IMs, and everybody's like, I need this thing out of Jira. I'm like, okay, cool, calm down. Let me see what this thing is. And so I go look, and I'm like, what the heck? I can't get this out of Jira, right? So instead of asking the 7 or 8 people that I am in, because they all said, oh, this one person wants this, I went and pinged that one person, and I said, hey, what do you want out of Jira? And I learned 2 valuable things. One, all the other 7, 8 people that pinged me didn't understand what that one person wanted. And 2, that person made an assumption that they needed something out of Jira because their director made a comment in passing in a meeting about something. So then I went and I just out of curiosity went and followed that trail. And I went to the director and I'm like, what is it that you need out of Jira? And I went all the way to the top. And then the guy at the top was like, I don't need anything out of Jira. It was a rhetorical question. And the amount of work that got created in an hour.
Yep.
It is very dangerous as a leader to say anything offhand or off the cuff because people might interpret
Oh,
it
it creates work. Every syllable that comes out of your mouth is an action item in Jira.
I do want to go back to your I do want to go back to your your story about the company and like the 300 people and the 12 people and such. What I see with the system of work, it's also going to be a generational work. Like it's not going to be not every company is going to be implementing a system of work anytime soon. The new startups, the new companies, they're going to be probably adapting this much quicker than the older, bigger ones. And they're going to do it at a different timeline. Also, it's generational in the fact that most of the people who are currently in management are from a certain generation, had a certain uprising, certain education system. That education system has changed the way people, like the people who now graduate, have a different idea of how people should work together. That's going to eventually bubble up into leadership, and it's also going to change the way people look at how we work together, what tools do we need, what support do we need, how do we put AI in there. So the vision for Atlassian, like Atlassian wants to become a 100-year company and beyond. So they're also planning for those 100 years. Like we eventually want to get there. Originally, Excel was made for accountants. Now everybody's using Excel, but it took them at least 30 years to get everybody to use Excel. And now we want to take 30 to 40 years, so actually 1 or 2 generations of leadership to get everybody to focus on the system of work and really think it through and make it obvious for everybody to understand, okay, this is the way we work together. This is how AI and Rovo and the tools support our way of working. This is how we can improve. So it is going to take a long time, but the people who have that vision right now can implement it, can really become those, like the people basically discovering new frontiers and then going beyond those. Go where nobody has gone before.
So we've got that, right? We've got Atlassian and the ecosystem around it trying to feed this vision into partners that have seen multiple bites of this cherry as to what Atlassian is. But it's on us now to hear what Atlassian's saying they want to be, and that not say no, you don't want that. I want you to be what you were yesterday. No, they're saying no. This is what we think Atlassian will be in the future, and here's where you should be thinking about us, which is managing work and becoming knowledge managers and having AI embedded in your team. This is their vision. The gauntlet is for them to follow that up with action and deliver the technology in order to achieve that. And that's why you're seeing Atlassian pick up its pace. They're running after it, and we can sit behind and go, oh, I don't believe they really meant that, or no, they've not grown up and changed, or no, they are what I wanted them to be. And if you're in those bucket, then watch as everyone else leaves on the train. That's fine, because your world will still exist for the next 18 months, and then you'll see where it goes. It can't possibly happen, sure. But for Atlassian, the gauntlet is for them to still be the right product to select. Because you're right, as these teams get broken down and as you can do more things per user, and that gives people more choice, right? If I'm out of a 100,000 person organization, if I've got 5,000 people over here, I don't necessarily have to put them into Jira and to Confluence if it's pretty easy for me to glue them in and I stick them on ADO or on any other platform that I wanted. And it's on Atlassian to still be the best technology platform to execute what they're looking for. And so far, Atlassian are catching up with the steps that they're taking. They've been anchored, right, have fallen behind the cloud vision because of how much people have wanted to stay on the data center versions of their apps. And that's been a challenge. And now they're full throttle. You're seeing how fast they're pushing stuff out. It's akin to where they were at Server before they got DC. This isn't Atlassian speeding up from where they've been and accelerating.
They're catching back up to where they used to be.
They are returning to form, and they are figuring out how to do that. And Atlassian, as they've expanded, has started to. They're doing this pace now. It's not we're going to try and get this. The pace is here, and I wouldn't be surprised if the pace increases still further. And it's for us to hold on to them and go for the ride.
Yeah, very well said. And I think that's a great way to end it there, Dan and Peter. So thank you both for coming on. Hopefully this was an interesting conversation. And Dan, hopefully I didn't get your blood boiling too much.
Thank you very much,
like
Alex.
I'm a Brit. I'm designed for this.
Thank you very much, Alex, for having us.
Thank you both for coming on here. Whenever you guys want to have another debate, let me know. I'm here to throw every anti-pattern at Dan to see his reaction.
I will happily come back and debate you more.
All right. Thank you very much, folks. And make sure you subscribe and drop a like on this video. Thanks.